fall 2006 series of town hall meetings. And for those of you who don't know, the UC Multicultural Alliance is a student organization that aims to unite the University of Montana students, staff, and faculty in building a more diverse and welcoming campus. And we do this by building coalitions between campus representatives of different cultural and ethnic groups, and also working in collaboration with academic programs, student organizations, and we sponsor educational and entertaining cultural events. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my co-coordinator, Angeli Graham, and she's going to introduce our panelists for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for braving the weather today, guys. Tonight we have 4 panelists. Naomi Al-Hadef, the president of Hillel, the Jewish Student Association on campus. Ryan Fries, the president of the Muslim Student Association. Pastor John Lund, pastor at the ARC, which is the Lutheran Campus Ministry Program. And we have Verbenna Rowe, who is a Wiccan pagan, is that correct? Okay. Wiccan pagan minister, priestess, and scribe. And she's sitting in for Kim May, who is the president of POWERS, which is stands for Pagan or the Otherkin Wiccan Education Resources and Support, and that is the Wiccan neo-pagan group on campus. When we first started to talk about the idea for this meeting, we wanted to just give everybody kind of a brief overview of the different traditions that happen in December. Once that started, we realized that there are definite, issues that need to be addressed concerning the different traditions on campus. The campus and the greater Missoula community is increasingly diverse, and that raises certain issues with it. Among them, teachers not considering certain holidays as legitimate reasons to skip class or tests, and different issues as far as the Missoula community goes with recognizing certain traditions as legitimate, certain practices as legitimate. So we would like to also address those issues, and you feel free to ask any questions relating to those on your index cards. And so hopefully tonight we will start to not only recognize that there are diverse traditions in December and on campus, but also to learn more about them so we can come to a greater recognition of them and fuller acceptance. So without continuing even more, I would like to welcome Naomi Al-Hadef.
Okay, my name is Naomi Al-Hadef, and I am the president of the Jewish student group on campus, the only one, as a matter of fact. The group was founded many years ago. It was originally called the Jewish Student Union, and it was changed to Hillel, which is a more national group. I'm an undergraduate. I'm going for my wildlife biology degree, and like I said, I'm very involved with Hillel. We like to get as many Jewish students on campus as we can to participate in holidays that are throughout the year, because they are away from home and people need that. These are just some pictures. This was actually a couple months ago on the Oval in our sukkah, which is a structure that we built. And we had actually a pretty good turnout, and this was a welcome feast on campus at the beginning of the semester. So I'll start with, what is Judaism? Judaism is an ancient religion that has been around for over 5,000 years. It is based on the lunar calendar, which means we are based on the moon instead of the Gregorian calendar, which is commonly accepted in this country. And the lunar calendar is the official calendar of Israel, the only Jewish state in the world. It is a country. It is also, they consider themselves a Jewish state. Currently, we're in the year 5767. So if you were to look up a Jewish calendar, today would be like the 15th of Kislev in 5767. So the holiday here in December is Hanukkah, as I'm sure many of us are aware of. It's all over the news. It's all over TV. It's in the malls, it's in the bookstore. In fact, you can buy products at Albertsons at checkout line. But the story of Hanukkah is really a very interesting story. It is one of the world's first religious war. It's based on a story about the world's first religious war. At the time, the Jews were living in the modern-day land of Israel, and they were freely practicing Judaism. They were not constricted by any governing laws as to how they were to practice their religion. However, at the time, the Greeks were the ruling people, and they came to the Jews one day and demanded that they sacrifice a pig to the Greek gods. And one of the first rules of Judaism is you don't idol worship. As a result, one of the elders, a Kohen, which is the highest level of, it's a high priest. He stood up and refused the Greeks, and calling to everyone, "Follow me, all of you, who are for God's law and stand by the covenant." This is from the book of Maccabees. Now, the book of Maccabees is a separate book that was written after the Hebrew Bible was created. At the time, they used to incorporate stories into the Bible as they happened, but after a point, they decided, okay, we can't keep adding, so they stopped. And everything else from that point on became oral law or different written book. So this is from the book of Maccabees. The Kohen who stood up in defense of and defied the Greeks was Matisyahu, and he and his 5 sons ran to the hills to establish a guerrilla army that was going to ward off the Greeks because they weren't going to accept the idolatry. The eldest son, Judah, was nicknamed the Maccabee, which in Hebrew means a hammer, and so he was, as the oldest, the leader of the army. Judah and his 4 brothers, Eliezer, Yochanan, Yonatan, and Shimon, were estimated at most to be running an army of about 12,000 men. Now, this was a huge group for the Jews, but a very small army compared to the Greeks, who had 40,000 men. They also had a herd of elephants, modern-day tanks. The majority of the battle took place in the foothills between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Now, that part of the area is very close to the Mediterranean Sea, so a lot of the fighting was done in very low elevation. And in all, Judah and the Maccabees fought the Greeks for over 25 years. Now, if you read the book of Maccabees, or if you were to try and learn about the story, it seems like, okay, Judah and the Maccabees fought the Greeks lost, and then they went home. When in reality, it was a 25-year battle. However, 3 years into the battle, the Jews were able to reconquer Jerusalem. And Jerusalem was where the temple was located, and this temple is the most important place for Jews to go to. And they found that the temple had been defiled. It had been turned into idol worship, which we can't do. So when the Jews entered the temple, they began to convert it back to its original state. They began to purify it. They used purification techniques, turned things back from being, unkosher to kosher, kosher being the accepted state that things can be in: food, clothing, how you act. It's very, conservative, modest. However, the menorah that was originally in the temple was made of solid gold, and it was melted down by the Greeks for, whatever reason, probably for gold, but maybe for, swords or something. And it had been melted down, so there was no menorah to light. Now, a menorah is similar to a candelabra. At the time, it was 7 holders, and the Jews felt that making the same one again was going back to the way it was, and they wanted to start afresh. So they assembled a makeshift menorah to discover that only 1 vial of kosher sealed olive oil had not been destroyed. And kosher olive oil is the only thing that is allowed to be burned in the temple. So the Jews purified the temple, and then they lit this new menorah, which had 9 holders. And miraculously, the lamp oil, which was just a vat or a small vial of oil, lasted for 8 days. And this was one of the miracles of Hanukkah. Now, when they lit this menorah, it was on the 25th of Kislev, which is the Hebrew month that we're already in at the moment. So, in conclusion, the story of Hanukkah is a celebration of two miracles. One was a military victory over the Greeks. Second was a spiritual victory over the Greeks. We defied the Greeks enough to stand up for our religion, fight back, and continue what was the path of Judaism to also win back the land that had been taken. This is why the spiritual value of victory over the Greeks is why we light the menorah. It commemorates that lighting. And also, I don't have a picture of it, but I actually should grab one. There's some outside on the table right there. It's a 9-holder menorah, and one of them is called the shamash, and it lights all other 8. Now, the 8 are representative of the 8 days of Hanukkah. Now, it was a miracle that the oil lasted for 8 days. However, it's more of a miracle why 8 was the number that it lasted. Why not 9? Why not 7? 8 is just enough for, oh, thank you. This is a kosher menorah. This is what the new one looked like. It was probably gold. It has 8 in one row and one that's higher than the other. And this one is lit first, and then the others are followed. Now, so on the first night, you would put 1 candle, light it. The second night, do 2 candles, and so on. So why, like I said, why not 7? Why not 9? 8 is a crucial number. It's exactly enough days to get through one Sabbath. So every week, there's a Sabbath, and it's on Saturday. So if you have 8 days, you're guaranteed to go through a Sabbath. So it was a way for the Jews to come back together, celebrate the Sabbath, and be Jewish once again. So 8 days is a miracle many times over. Many traditions of Hanukkah is some kids' games. There's the dreidel game, which is a dreidel, which is like a spinning top, and then there's gelt, which is candy money, in a sense. And I have recently learned that it was actually invented to trick the Greeks. Jews weren't allowed to carry money, nor were they allowed to carry anything Jewish at the time of the war between Judah and the Maccabees against the Greeks. So in order to get around, the children started hoping for the war to be over. So they would carry money with them and some form of Jewish icon with them at all times, just in case the war ended and they could return back to the temple. So what happened was, if the Greeks were to ever come upon the children, they would spin the top and say that they were playing a game. So that's how the dreidel game came about. Obviously, traditional dinners, everyone loves to come together and eat. Some traditional foods are latkes and sufganiyot, which sufganiyot are kind of similar to jelly donuts, and latkes are like potato pancakes, but fried. Everyone gathers around to light the menorah every evening. They sing Hebrew song like Al Chanisim, which is just a really fun song that really gets the family into the holiday. And then after the candles are lit, you put it in the window for everyone to see. The concept of this exchange of gifts is actually an American trend that has escalated for reasons because we live in the United States. The United States is, it's all about, Christmas and celebrating Christmas and exchanging gifts. Historically, Hanukkah has nothing to do with gifts. It's about celebrating beating the Greeks, but also for a religion to persevere, our religion to persevere. So the exchange of gifts is not really necessary. But because we live in this culture of the United States, or of the American culture, we adapt so that we can fit in as much as possible and yet still practice Judaism. So the exchange of gifts with Hanukkah is really just a commercial thing. In Israel, they don't exchange gifts. They just get together and be with friends and family. It's just a Hanukkah dinner table. Hanukkah is also known as the Festival of Lights because we are lighting so many candles and putting them up in the windows. This was one example from last year at my house. We like to do blue and white because of the flag of Israel, which is blue and white. And the celebration of Hanukkah is, like I said, it's about the perseverance of our religion. That is the main point. It is remembering the two miracles that happened It is remembering that we are still here after every battle, after every war. Okay. Hanukkah literally translates into the word dedication or inauguration, which, as I explained, when the new menorah was made, it was dedicated to the Jewish community and to the new purified temple. It comes from the word Chanukiah, which is another term for a menorah, just in Hebrew. Like I said, it's celebrated by families across the globe. There are Jews all over the world, and they celebrate Hanukkah according to Jewish tradition, and they might include customs from, customs from the culture that they're living in, the way we do and exchange gifts. And it goes on for 8 days, like I said. This is just to explain some of the holy objects that you would see around a Jewish home, especially around the time of Hanukkah. A Torah, which is the Old Testament, and it's just a very large scroll. A kippah, which are the skull caps worn by men, and it's to remember God at all times. Like I said, a menorah or a chanukiah. A talit, which is a very long prayer shawl that men will wear during synagogue services or when they're praying at home with their families. And oftentimes, if a man is married, he, or even if he's not married, but if he has, other women in the household, it's a way to put the shawl over them and to incorporate them into the home. It's a way to understand that a home has more than just one presence. It's not just male, and there's females, and you need women to make a man whole. So it's also a way to incorporate a whole family. And sometimes I even had a rabbi who had one that was like 12 feet long, and he could put it all over the children in the synagogue. Every Friday morning he would do that. So a siddur is a prayer book. There's one outside on the table if anyone's interested. And then a mezuzah is a holder with a prayer inside posted at every doorpost. And so every time you enter into a room, you can kiss it to remember God. This is just a picture of a Torah. It's usually calf skin, sometimes lamb, and it's written by hand, and it can take many, many years, 7, 8 years to write a Torah. And it's the people who do it are very good at it. These are actually some friends of mine, a picture that was taken in Israel, and they're wearing those shawls that I was just explaining. This is actually at the Western Wall, which is located in Jerusalem, in Israel, and they're there praying, probably, afternoon services. Men pray 3 times a day. Women don't have to pray 3 times, but once is sufficient. So that's just some talit. This is what Torah writing looks like. It has many little tick marks at the end, and each letter is written for a very, very specific purpose. The spacing between letters has a specific purpose. In the Torah, there are no vowels. As you'll see on this next slide, the Hebrew alphabet, these dots that are sometimes in the middle or above or underneath letters is representative of a vowel, A-E-I-O-U. And like I showed you before, the Torah doesn't have any. So people who read Torah are very, very good at it because they know the word before they read it. This is just some pictures of the Western Wall in Israel. You can see a divider sort of in the middle. On the left is the men, on the right side is the women. And they separate the men and women when praying to God. And there's actually a parking lot there now. This is another picture of the Western Wall, probably at a much less busy time. This is the far left side. Like I said, it's the Western Wall, also known as the Wailing Wall. People go to it to touch it, to pray to God, to ask for forgiveness, to cry, you name it. It is the last piece of standing structure of the temple that we just talked about in the Hanukkah story, where the Jews were going back to purify. It was destroyed. Solomon's temple, who built it, it was destroyed thousands of years ago. And this was the only wall that survived. So it is the last piece of very, very holy place to go to inside Jerusalem. And the last time I was there, archaeologists have discovered that the wall actually extends the amount that it is above ground, underground. So it's, when Solomon built it, they built it very structurally sound, and it extends way beyond underground. And off to that far left, you can actually go underneath, and you can see tools that were still left when the Jews had to evacuate the temple when it was being destroyed. So like Angelique talked about, there are, we have some conflicts that often arise on campus, or issues that can come up. Number one, and I'm just mention these in case people want to ask questions later. Number one is the Christmas trees that are on campus, on the oval, that are surrounding those lampposts. Personally, I think they're very beautiful, and I think it really decorates campus, and I love to walk outside and feel very festive and like, oh, I can't wait to go home and see my family, and the holidays are here. However, it is a Christmas tree. It is representative of the Christian holiday, and that's fine. However, I feel that on campus, as Jews, or as a Jewish person, there is much more, Christianity and Christmas in particular is much more prevalent on campus. If you go into the bookstore, it's very decorated red and green. I'm not saying take these away. I think they're beautiful. I'm just saying if you're going to recognize one religion, then it's fair to recognize other religions on campus. Fairfax, which is the calendar issued by the university, has recognized Christmas and Easter on their calendar. And yet Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, which are extremely important holidays in the Jewish calendar, are not recognized. This semester in particular, I had a test on Yom Kippur scheduled. I got my syllabus the first week of class. I went to the professor and said, I can't make it because it's my holiday. And he said, well, you can do a makeup of an essay test. And I don't see how that's fair. I don't know if tests should be planned on Yom Kippur. There are other holidays of other religions that should be recognized so that teachers are aware that students won't be in class. And even if they can't avoid it, I mean, there are conflicts, what we're trying to do is have professors and instructors recognize that you can't penalize a student for their religion. You don't have, classes on December 25th because that would be absurd. Nobody would do that. And that's all we're asking is for recognition. Sukkot, like I showed the picture earlier of everyone in that structure, we built that structure on campus this year, and it was actually vandalized several times. Like I said, the Yom Kippur scheduling conflicts. And just being aware that Christianity is a big religion in our country and on campus, but there are other big religions in our country and on our campus, and they need to be recognized. And I spoke with some of my rabbis, so my facts were straight, so just wanted to give thanks to them. And that's it.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. This sometimes happens when we do a PowerPoint presentation. The fonts don't match up. So as I go through this slide presentation, you'll see that Arabic letters are over English letters and back and forth. It happens. It's part of the technology. So that's just an issue, I guess, of the fonts not being installed on the laptop. So I start off in the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful. The Prophet ﷺ said that any gathering or any speech that starts or doesn't begin with the name of God is deficient from the beginning. So I start with His name and I ask that He accept our effort. Allahumma ameen. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about our celebration, which is called Eid al-Adha. We have two celebrations during the year, and we also follow the lunar calendar like the Hebrew calendar. Our calendar is called Hijri, and we follow the lunar cycle, so our holiday events are floating events as well. So you could find that Eid al-Adha would be in the winter this year, and 10 years later it will be in the summer. Alhamdulillah, this year we actually had a chance to be in the December holidays because Eid will fall on the 31st. So we made it by one day. We barely scratched in there. So now we're part of the December holidays. We're right in the middle of the holiday season. So Doesn't mean that we'll do anything probably to incorporate ourselves with those holidays, but we'll at least be part of the group. So what you're looking at here, in Arabic we call al-Quds, which means the holy place, or the holy land. Al-Quds also means the farthest place. On your left, at the bottom of the screen, is Masjid al-Aqsa and Bayt al-Muqaddas. This is the place where Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam went from the earth to the heavens to get the commandments from God. And just in front of the Dome of the Rock there is, right next to the Wailing Wall, when you saw some of the pictures of the Wailing Wall, that's just in front of that is actually Masjid al-Quds, and that's the Holy Mosque, where people go to pray, and actually has some of the original artifacts there as well. I don't know what font that is, but it's pretty big. What I'd like to do is take you guys through basically some of the principles of Islam, just to kind of give some groundwork and some foundation to Islam, so that we can move into explaining some of the dimensions of the holidays. Islam is an Abrahamic faith. It follows the tradition of Abraham, from Moses to Abraham to Muhammad. So basically, we are considered the third of the three. We consider ourselves as following the third of the three revelations, which would be the Torah, then the Injil, which is the gospel to Jesus Christ, and then the Quran to Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, peace be upon him. And we also say for Moses, we say alayhi salam, and for Abraham alayhi salam, peace be upon him. It's not appropriate in Islam to mention the names of such great people without bestowing God's peace upon them as they lay in waiting to reach Him. Muslims, similar to Judaism, are strictly monotheistic. So when there's issues of idol worship and those kind of things, when I was listening to Naomi talk about purifying the temple and the issues around that and the Greek paganism and those kind of things, it just strikingly reminded me of the situation in Mecca when the pagans had taken over the Kaaba, which was Abraham's house, and had basically turned it into a den of idol worship, which was against the teachings of the Quran. So when Muhammad came, alayhi salatu wasalam, he came and purified this house from false idols, according to our faith. So it just reminded me of kind of the similarity of stories. Muslims believe in the Islamic Judeo-Christian God. The word God in English is actually a derivative of the word Gott in German. So a lot of people will ask, well, why do you say Allah? Why do you say Rabb? These words, Rabbi, what do these mean in Arabic? Well, Arabic is a Semitic language, and it follows in that tradition. Jesus Christ spoke Aramaic, which was basically a cross between Hebrew and Aramaic. And so you wouldn't have heard the word God from his lips. So therefore, I like to always talk about that issue, because now these days in the media we hear Allah is, he was praying to Allah. He was praying to, he said Allahu Akbar. We mean God is great. And by saying Allah, we mean God. So there should be, that distinction should be made, and there shouldn't be kind of the connotation that there's a difference between God and Allah, or that there's only, in Islamic teachings, there's only one God, or a creator and his creation. And his name is, by the way, the most beautiful names and not just one name. So we have many names for God, and including Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, the most gracious, the most merciful, many different characteristics for God. And as I said before, Muslims believe that the Torah and the Gospel, like the Quran, were revealed by God. Muslims believe in Allah. These are what we call the 6 articles of faith for one to become a Muslim. They should believe that there's only one true God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That they should believe in the angels, Gabriel, Michael. Gabriel would be the angel who brings the revelation to people. Michael would be the angel of war. The sacred books, the Quran, the Gospel, the Torah, the messengers, Muhammad, Abraham, Noah, for example, and the Day of Judgment. And also, because the font's so big there's one on the bottom that's called Al-Qadr, which means destiny. A Muslim should believe in destiny, that we have free will, and also God has created a destiny for mankind, that there's some things in your life that you don't have any control over, like how much water you will drink, how much air you will breathe, the day that you were born, the day that you were died. This is all destiny. And so you have free will to go and buy coffee from the market downstairs, but in Islam there's also destiny, like who you will marry in your life or how many children you will have. Muhammad was born in 570 AD in Mecca. In 610 he received the first revelation from Ghar Hira, the cave of Hira, from the angel Gabriel. And in 622 he left for Mecca to Medina, and that's the date that marks the beginning of the Hijri calendar. So the 5 pillars of Islam, you probably have heard of something like this before. They're very important. The first is a shahada. Shahada, to say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. We believe that in Islam it's not a religion that is starting from the beginning, but it's a continuation of the old. And so saying a shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, was actually something that people would say at Jesus' time. They would say La ilaha illallah Isa Rasulullah, La ilaha illallah Musa Rasulullah. They believe that there's one God and Jesus Christ is his messenger. They believe that there's one God and Muhammad is his messenger and Moses is his messenger, so on and so forth. So that's a shahada, and we believe that that's for each prophet that came to the world, they followed this example. And a salah, which is the prayer, is on Muslims 5 times a day. And at the time for Christians, when it was revealed that it was 5 times a day for Muslims, it was for Christians 3 times a day, and like Naomi said, for Jews it was 3 times a day as well. Zakah, actually in the word zakah in Arabic means purification. So it's called charity, but actually to purify the rest of your wealth, you have to give charity a certain amount. And so every year 2.5% of your gross income, which is expendable after you've paid all of your bills and those kind of things, what you have actually in capital, 2.5% is due upon the rest of it to purify that money. And then charity is like extra than that, is over and above that. So you can give what's called a sadaqah, and sadaqah is giving, just Muhammad said, a smile can be charity. So just smiling at people, giving the smallest things are sadaqah, and those aren't measured amounts or required amounts, but they're encouraged. A sawm is fasting in Ramadan for 30 days. And the last one is specific to this conversation because it's actually marks the beginning of Eid al-Adha, and that's Hajj. And so I'd like to show a quick video, maybe a couple, 3 minutes here, about the beginning of Hajj, and then I'll go through and explain a little bit about Hajj and Eid al-Adha.
Generations who have longed to reach it. Mecca is a year-round destination for Muslims, but the numbers will surge dramatically months from now, during Hajj season. The lives of Mecca's more than 1 million permanent residents, and the city itself, are utterly defined by the presence of the Kaaba and preparations for the Hajj.
Sometimes I have a hard time convincing people that we never stop preparing for Hajj. We prepare for Hajj every single hour, during Hajj, immediately after Hajj, before Hajj. Hajjis are our customer, and we cater for them in a customized manner. If you can imagine having 20 Super Bowls in one stadium where 2 million people will come to the same stadium, and if you add to that these 2 million people will actually be taking part in playing the game as well, it may give you a glimpse of the preparations needed for the Hajj.
Part of Mecca's mystique stems from the fact that only Muslims are allowed to come here. Mecca sits in the western mountains of Saudi Arabia, in a sanctuary roughly 100 miles square. Since long before Islam, it has been considered sacred territory, where no one could hunt, cut trees, or fight. At the heart of the city is a great mosque called Al-Masjid Al-Haram, and at its center is the Kaaba.
All religious faiths have a center. This is probably an essential part of the religious mentality, of human spirituality. In Islam, that center is there in the city of Mecca, centered on the house towards which all Muslims pray.
Muslims don't worship the Kaaba. They worship what it represents, the one God. Beneath its cover, the Kaaba is a simple stone building that stands 50 feet high. Inside its golden doors is an unadorned room. According to one Muslim tradition, the Kaaba was built by Adam, based on a cosmic plan handed down from God, and then rebuilt by Abraham after the Great Flood. On its southeast corner, framed in silver, rests something called the Black Stone. Some believe that it fell from the heavens, and that it was one of the building stones used by Abraham. Many pilgrims try to touch or kiss the stone, but most would be happy to simply lay eyes upon the Kaaba. Fidel.
Okay, that was going to take you into the American, like Texas American woman who went for pilgrimage section of the film there, so I thought we'd just get a quick background. Actually, last year in the winter, I had the privilege of making the pilgrimage to Mecca, so I have a few photographs from that experience. And just seeing some of the pictures from the video, and it really reminds you of the being there and the sheer volume of people, and the experience itself is very emotional. The Hajj is the annual pilgrimage to Mecca. Like I said before, it's the fifth pillar, the fifth of 5 pillars. Everyone who is able to do it, physically and financially, in his lifetime, in his or her lifetime, should be able to perform Hajj. And Hajj is basically a 5-day experience where you go first to Mecca, then you go out to Mina, where Abraham was tempted by the devil not to sacrifice his son, his firstborn son, and you throw stones there. It's called a jamarat. You throw stones basically against the devil's temptation but those things are symbols of the temptation, but not actually the devil himself. So some people, when we get into the Hajj, it's basically you're walking in the steps of Abraham. There's everything that you do in this area is all in the tradition of Abraham. So you would think going to Mecca, and in this situation you will be, you're definitely walking in the steps of Muhammad and his companions, and like the narrator said, you're in the steps of Adam himself. But you think a lot about Abraham and his experience there. So that's really a lot of your reminder, a lot of your dhikr in Arabic is concentrated on the story of Abraham and on his sacrifice. So the Kaaba, and you can see that was kind of like a slow film there, slow camera film speed. You can see that the people are making tawaf around the Kaaba. Tawaf means like a circumambulation, going around 7 times when you go there. As soon as you walk into Al-Haram, and so you walk into the Kaaba, you have to go around it 7 times. Every other mosque that you go to in the world, when you walk in the mosque, you pray immediately when you step inside. But the Kaaba actually has its own Tahiyyat al-Masjid, which means greetings to the mosque, which means you walk around 7 times, and at each time you reach Al-Hajar al-Aswad, the black stone, you say Allahu Akbar. So the word Kaaba actually means cube in Arabic, and tawaf is going around. After you go around 7 times, you stop there, like as you see in the picture. This is Maqam al-Ibrahim. This Maqam al-Ibrahim is the Abraham station where him and his son actually started to build the foundations of Al-Kaaba. So inside that glass are the footprints of Abraham, and they're about as wide as this table, or this wide. And there's 2 footprints there, and they're encased in gold. And a lot of pilgrims stop and they kiss this, and they rub their prayer mats and things on this. It's actually not a part of the faith, just you have to go around it, but they like to do those kind of things. So it's a very spiritual experience, and people come out of their shell, basically, in their spiritual shell when they get there. So you'll see people crying, you'll see people praying, and all different emotions there. When you go for Hajj, you wear only 2 pieces of cloth, one across your upper body and one across your lower body. That's for men. We wear it up to our waist, above our navel. So this is called our awra. Awra in Arabic means like a place that you can't expose to anyone that's not your blood relation. So for men, that's from the navel to the knees, and for women, that's everything except the hands and face. If you notice that some Muslim women, they wear what's called niqab. It's Arabic veil. Not Arabic veil, niqab is the Arabic word, but it's a veil over the face. When you go for a pilgrimage, you're not allowed to wear this veil. So all women that go into Mecca, they can't cover their face even if they want to. So when you go, and by the way, there's mixing between men and women inside of the Haram. I know that there's always talk in Islam about the difference between a man's position in Islam and a woman's position in Islam. When you go to the holiest place in Islam, which is Al-Kaaba, you'll find Muslim men and Muslim women praying sometimes side by side. And there's also a women's section there where women can go and be by themselves if they choose. But for myself, I had many times while I was in Mecca, I had to kind of get around, and I prayed a lot of times next to women side by side. So that's kind of normal in Al-Haram now. Eid al-Adha, it marks the of the culmination of pilgrimage to Mecca. So after the Muslims have two celebrations. The first is Ramadan, which is Eid al-Fitr, breaking the fast, and Eid al-Adha is at the end when you finish the pilgrimage. In Islam, we celebrate two things, basically two religious experiences. And once you finish them, once you complete them, then it's time for celebration. So fasting for a month, it's a very strenuous thing. And then at the end, you break your fast and everyone enjoys that. It's part of the celebration is that you accomplished it. And the other celebration is just the food and sharing with family and friends. Eid al-Adha, at the end of pilgrimage, even though we don't go to pilgrimage, we celebrate with those people who did. So all around the world, we celebrate for 3 days, and kids get candy and money, and gifts are exchanged, but not in the Christmas kind of sense. And it's just a time that we like to take time off of work, time off of school, and enjoy the time with our family and friends. This year, Eid al-Adha will be on the December 31st. Like I mentioned before, the Islamic calendar follows the lunar cycle. Therefore, the holidays move ahead approximately 12 days a year. So that would mean next year, Eid al-Adha would actually be on December 19th instead of December 31st. Muslims in America, there's approximately 7 million Muslims in America, and it's the second largest religion here now. It's also the fastest growing religion in America, both due to people that are converting into the religion and also people that are coming into the country as foreign nationals. So there's kind of a double side effect there. And then this chart kind of shows the different segments of American Muslim populations, 30% being African American. I'm in the small little piece of pie there, the European 2%, and Arab being 25%, South Central Asian. So you can see the diversity. There's a lot of diversity there within, and that's reflective on a lot of campuses too. When you go across campuses around the United States, you'll see that Muslims come from all around the world. And so it's kind of a really interesting, when we have our celebrations, you get a lot of different food, you get a lot of different people and different types of clothing, and you know, it's really interesting to see the diversity even within the Muslims themselves. And finally, these are just some pictures of my visit to Medina and Mecca. This is the Prophet's Mosque. These were taken with a cellular phone camera, so the clarity is probably not that great. Taking pictures in Mecca and Medina aren't, the security there, they're not really happy about you taking a lot of pictures. So there's a lot of cell phones that the Saudis have. They have those kind of things, like in Al-Haram especially, that's a sacred area. So some of the friends I was with there, they brought cell phone cameras in. I didn't take these pictures, actually. I'm innocent from that. So, you know, that explains the quality. This mosque, the Prophet's Mosque, you can't really see it from this picture, but it fits over 1 million people inside of it. This is in we stayed outside of Mecca in a small, not a small city, but a suburb of Mecca called Al-Azaziyah. And that is our scholar that basically followed us, took us on to each different place, each holy site, and explained to us what are the rites of this place. According to the tradition of Abraham, what do we do? So actually, this picture is showing a night lecture that we were all attending and listening to the sheikh explain what we were going to do. The next day, you can see all of our heads are shaved. So we had finished the first rites of Hajj, and we were going to make tawaf al-wada, which is like the farewell tawaf for the Kaaba, and then we were going to go to Medina from there. So he's explaining in this picture, what are you guys going to do tomorrow? And then be prepared for a long 12-hour bus ride to Medina that should be 2 hours. This is a picture of myself and one brother from New Jersey. We're actually in Mina here. That's a tent, and you can't see the ceiling or anything, but there's about 3 million people in this area, and they're all divided by countries and sections, and we're in the American and British section, and we're all staying in these tents we stay in the tents for 1 to 3 days. It just depends on how long each person wants to stay. This is called Jabal al-Rahmah. I was actually there, close to the top. Jabal al-Rahmah, it's where the Prophet gave his last sermon, and the mist that you see down there is actually water that they spray because it gets so hot there. They spray water to keep the pilgrims cooled off. And you can't see it because there's so many people on top of this mountain, but there's rocks that are like 5 feet tall, and they're just piled on top of each other, and that's kind of what the mountain is. So I sat on one of those rocks, and then at this place, Muhammad said, God descends down to the lowest heaven, and he listens very closely to each one of our prayers. So when I was there, I had a big list of all the prayers I wanted to say when I was there, and when I looked out at all the people, I said, my first prayer was, please God, just answer their prayers first. Because you see so many people, and it's just some people crying, some people, men, women, children. It's an amazing thing, and I didn't think about the things that I had written at that point. And finally, this is some of our Muslim community here. We're almost 150 strong, getting stronger. And this is at the community center. We hold a lot of our events there. And it's just after the Eid al-Fitr prayers. And you can see everybody's kind of wearing their traditional clothes. And especially, this is our dean of the sociology program here on the left. That's John Spores. When I first came to Missoula, I said, oh, I'm the only American Muslim in this room. And he said, no, you got that wrong. And I would have never guessed that he was Muslim, but because he's about 65, 70 years old, and he's going to retire now. And he surprised me with that one. But then he likes to wear traditional Malaysian clothes because his wife is Malaysian, actually, so that's what he's dressed in. So that kind of explains our community. I probably went over time, but I hope that gives you guys more information about Islam and Eid al-Adha.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And it's also not always easy representing the Christian side of things in this country. Actually, I can only represent one Christian perspective. There are many. And I'd have to say, just to start, that I often am embarrassed to call myself a Christian in this country. And I'm embarrassed by Christian intolerance, on our attitudes towards other faiths, our history and attitudes towards the Jewish people, towards the Muslim people, towards people of any other faith other than our own narrow perspective. That's probably been our most dominant historical path, and I want to acknowledge that and say it's very sad. And even today, that seems to be the dominant perspective, and I think it's very difficult to be Muslim in this country these days, particularly if you're Arabic. And we live with a lot of fear. And I think the sad part for me is that none of that is consistent with the teachings of Jesus. And that above anything else, he tried to break down those walls that existed in his own world and tried to reach across to people who were different, tried to build bridges, tried to talk about love of the neighbor as central, nonviolence as the central path. So he very clearly had an alternative way of being in the world from the tribal warfare and from hatred of the other. And it's just very embarrassing when our country goes to war under the guise of this is somehow God's will, and a Christian God somehow is behind that. So we are not all in agreement as a Christian perspective. And I think the deeper call for us is to be understanding and to not just tolerate, but to understand, accept, and build relationships with each other. So that's part of what we do anyway, and try to do, and hope to do better as Lutheran Campus Ministry, I guess. When we think about this holiday season coming up, it's also embarrassing to be a Christian for me. This year, the estimate is $457 billion spent on holiday gift giving and all that goes with it. And some of that will be the Jewish folk and maybe some others, but a lot of it will be around Christmas and Christians, and it's just insane. I have a couple of ideas about that. First of all, I think maybe culturally we just need a big reason to spend a lot of money on each other and eat a lot of food and get together and call it a holiday. It's maybe more of like a potlatch in the native northern tradition. Just like, let's just celebrate life, and somehow it's kind of turned into that. But it really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the birth of Jesus. I'm not even sure that's one of our most important holidays as Christians, but it's just evolved into that. And the other side of it, though, is I think that we are longing, and that's, I think, where the season of Advent comes in. Advent for the Christians starts this coming Sunday, will be the first Sunday of Advent, and will go for the 4 Sundays before Christmas. And Advent is that time of anticipating, of waiting for the one who is to come. And the one who is to come is the birth of Jesus, but it's more metaphorically Emmanuel, God with us in our lives on earth. And so we enter into this period of waiting, and we start with, I don't have the right candles on here. This is an Advent wreath. Most of the Protestant churches will have an Advent wreath, and then many families will have one at home. They used to be purple, and now they're blue, and my kids actually got a hold of ours, so we'll have to get some new candles. But what we'll do is each week of Advent we'll light another candle. And so for Advent, for us, we'll start with darkness, with that recognizing the brokenness of our world, of our relationships, of our connection to earth, of wars that are happening, of famine, disease, all of those things, and our yearning that goes with that deep yearning for a different path, for somehow hope, for promise, for new life. And so Advent, to start, is to light one candle as that flicker of hope. And then as Advent continues, then we light 2 candles and 3, and so that hope builds. And so we go back to the texts that are texts of promise of God walking with us, that builds. And then on Christmas, then we'll light the center candle, the white candle, the Christ candle, as a symbol of God penetrating the darkness and the brokenness of our lives and bringing new life somehow for us. That's the journey that we try to be on, and then over here we're caught up in all this other more what I'd call cultural, almost secularized version, and yet I don't know, I get the sense that there's a lot of pressure to buy a lot of gifts and to have all the decorations and to have our lights, and churches will start, the anxiety builds, and you have to have it all just right, and it's almost like we're trying to create this God experience for ourselves, and it's really quite counter to the story that we're also called to be on. And so I don't know, I think we should just call it a potlatch and enjoy each other and share gifts if we want and have great food, and then have a faith piece that maybe goes as well. I might stop there, and there's certainly a million more things to say, but I'll let it go at that, and we can talk more later. Thank you.
Okay, hello. As most of you know me, I'm Verbena Rowe. I am a scribe, lore master, and 26th generation druid. My family dates back over 2,000 years that we know of. We're of the Mistletoe clan of druidic history, which is one of the best and most well-established clan in England. The holiday that I'll be presenting today is Yule, which is the winter solstice. It represents the dark and light aspects of the world, specifically darkness coming to an end. The group that I represent is Powers, Pagan, Otherkin, which is education, resources, and support. Powers has been established. I was one of the people who started to help bring it around in 2001. Angie was one of the people, was the founder who brought it really to the forefront and nurtured it into a group for our community. At that point, we didn't have resources in our community. We're very fortunate to have such a group present today because there's still very many problems in the community that pagans cannot address on their own because we are still very much a religious minority. Yule is the birth of the Sun King. That is the masculine power represented in the god. This picture here represents the holly god, which we have 3 faces of God. We understand the masculine aspect of the world as God. This specific god is the holly king. He defeated the oak king at Mabon, which is our September holiday. Each king defeats the other one, which ensures a circle of life, which ensures that our families will prosper, our abilities will grow, and that we will be able to continue on with life. As it says, Yule falls upon the winter solstice, December 21st this year. The holiday represents the middle of winter and serves as a rebirth from darkness. Yule is the longest day of the year. It's traditionally seen as hope because then the days became shorter, and in the days of our ancestors, we didn't have T3 connections. We didn't have all the cool things, high-powered rifles, so getting out of the icy pits of winter was a very good thing and ensured that we would survive much longer. The holiday, winter solstice has been observed for over 25,000 years. It's actually now known that the Neanderthals even marked such solstices in their beliefs and systems, and they may have been the predecessors of humans even in the religious aspects, as we are probably not directly related to Neanderthal, but rather an offshoot. So it's very interesting that another species very similar to our own held these religious concepts. So we don't, as humans, we may have stolen them from them, we don't really know. The image above here is called a fire wheel or sun wheel. This is one particularly, since I'm a fire elemental, I decided to burn some of my hair off with. This was shot a little while back. What you do is the Wheel of the Year marks the 4 cross-quarter days, those being Yule, Midsummer, Samhain, and Ostara. We also have cross-quarter days. We have 8 celebrations throughout the year, which denotes the Wheel of the Year. The celebration reflects humanity's connection to the earth through the end of winter's lengthening reign. As explained before, that was very good because farmers could look forward to a new year. Baby animals that were born in winter generally did not survive. So any sort of return to the sun and to more hospitable conditions in which we could ensure survival was completely crucial to humans. Traditional activities include family and coven celebrations, stories, crafting, food, the Festival of Lights, and more, which is really interesting from the Jewish perspective because we also have a Festival of Lights. It takes place when we consecrate our altars, we clean house because, especially those of us who are parents, don't have time to do anything. And with all the coming and going of relatives, we generally don't have time until that time. But we purify the area, clean it up, make it nice, and have lots of food. It's a really neat time. There are specific pagan foods depending what tradition you follow. As a Druid, there's different foods than, say, if someone's a Scandinavian pagan or an Asartru, which is a Nordic pagan. There's very many different kinds of foods, and it's really neat to get everyone together because then you get a lot of food. That's always a good thing. Crafting plays a big part in Yule. Many of the gifts are supposed to be crafted, but people like I am very lazy, so I try to find things that look like they've been crafted and wrap them up. So you're supposed to actually craft it because it's showing your heart and your intent for your coven mate, for your lover, for your husband, your partner, whomever you're presenting these gifts to. The Festival of Lights, as I said, it starts with 1 candle, and generally what you do is you light all of your cross-quarter points. We have 4 elements, earth, wind, fire, water, represented by 4 directions. That's believed what anchors the world into existence. And then you have the lower world, which is darkness, the upper world, which is light. And those 4 directions actually tether the world together, if that's an easy concept to understand. It's kind of like a big sphere, and without all elements and when we forget our interconnection to life and how all life is connected, we as a species will die. And it's believed in pagan terms, when this happens, that we will be no more, that something will wipe us all out and it will be the end, when we forget our place among the world. People travel thousands of miles, just as humanity have done for ages, to be with their loved ones on the holiday. I am an archaeologist, so I'm going to talk a lot about archaeology. Neanderthals traveled many, many miles to join with their clans and their families, it's believed. So did cave people, and it continues today, whether we migrate from New York to Dallas to San Diego to London, England, it doesn't matter where we go, we're migrating to be with our families. And it's a journey that's been made since time began. Okay, the traditions of Yule. The Yule tree is perhaps the most obvious tradition. For a pagan household, the better-known Yule log has served traditional purposes for quite some time. Yule tree is a tree, traditionally we go out and we cut it. Again, those of us who are lazy like myself, just go and buy it from a worthy cause and call it a day. The Yule log is a log that you procure generally from your tree if you go and cut your own tree. Otherwise, it's a sapling or a chunk of the tree. You burn it as a hope for peace, harmony, understanding. You basically write down all of the things of the year that you feel you've either done wrong or that you wish you could improve, if you wish for the war to stop, whatever that may be. You take the ashes and consecrate every living thing in your household. For those of us who have pets, children, relatives, will even send the ashes to people and be like, hey, here's some ash. Pets are the biggest one. My cats love being consecrated. I haven't figured it out yet, but they line up and think it's great. So I think it's their addiction to catnip after it, but I'm not too sure. The Yule log even serves today for Christmas. People don't know that it's supposed to be burned. They add it to their fires, but they don't know what to do with the ash, which seems to be the one aspect that was forgotten. And mistletoe traces its importance back to Druidic lore, my family's mistletoe clan. So mistletoe has been seen in many different cultures throughout the ages. Mistletoe felled Balder of Nordic legends. It is responsible in the Battle of the Trees, which is a Druidic hymn, as the turning point in a great battle. It's believed that millions of humans came together in a great battle known as the Battle of the Trees. There's no archaeological record of it, interestingly enough, but it's written in many different languages and many different lores, so we don't understand what could have happened. But the Battle of the Trees basically said that all the animals and all the trees rose up to come and defend us as humans. because we are the weakest species. You know, we don't stand a chance against a bear, and we don't stand a chance against a severe winter storm. But together, we create quite a force. And when we're in true balance with nature, nature respects us as well as we respecting it. And this time of year, we reestablish those connections to nature, to animals, and to the earth, and understanding our interconnectivity with it. Kissing Under the Mistletoe has pagan roots, which a lot of people don't know. It is a fertility festival which ensured a betrothal, especially in a time when marriage was often pre-considered, preordained for the couple. It was believed that you could indicate to your parents who you wanted to marry by taking them under the mistletoe and giving them a kiss. Sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. It holds true today as a relic of this past event. We've basically taken Yule and kind of merged it into Christmas, into different traditions. It's always been here, so it's very interesting how many aspects have survived into common and modern day traditions. And the wreath symbolizes the circle of life represented by birth, life, death, and rebirth. In paganism and Wicca, we believe in all aspects that birth is as hallowed as death, and death is definitely not the end. It's simply a merging into a new transition, which most of the world's religions do feature that. They have a heaven or a rebirth in case of like Buddhism. For us, we go to a place called Summerland, in which sometimes we are reincarnated if we so choose. Most people do want to be reincarnated, and so in pagan tradition, we're conscious that we may have lived several lives. So we refer to those as our past lives. Wreaths have always been made of organic components to demonstrate our connection to the earth as a great mother. You generally won't see a leaf made out of metal or plastic. I mean, you do now, but not traditionally. It's generally wood, plant, organic matters. And that's why, because we are going out to nature and gathering her abundance. The circle wants us to bring prosperity. It wants us to bring things back to our roots, make us whole as a humanity again. Because right now, especially in the world today, we're an extremely broken race. We're facing many, many dark times. There's new diseases coming out that we don't know what they are. There's hate, abundance, there's a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of starvation. So we want to actually bring back the older ways and reestablish that connection and hope that we can make humanity a better place. This is actually a solstice card from England up top. Okay. And the exchange of gifts represents the abundance of the earth and is part of a giveaway tradition to ensure good luck and prosperity. The giveaway was observed by Native American tribes to redistribute goods throughout the community so there wasn't so much jealousy or anger of one person being better enabled than another. The poorest would generally receive the most during the giveaway, and the richest would experience poverty. But yet, through their dedication and their giving out of these things, they were never left alone, which in our society is too common today. We don't take care of our poor. We don't take care of the people who need us the most. And for Yule, we make sure that whoever in our circle needs it the most is the one that gets the most. We think of gifts as, if they need food, we bring it to them. We look for neighbors who are impoverished. We look for senior citizens who don't have anything. We look for, children who don't have a thick enough coat. And we go out and we get those items and bring that to that person. Even if it's anonymous, we still bring that so they have enough. Not too much, but enough. And enough is the best gift of all because you're not wanting. The use of light shows humanity's longing for an end of winter and an end of struggle, as before the freezing times, especially probably during the Ice Age when temperatures dropped way, way below zero, probably in excess of 80 below zero, completely inhospitable to life. So humanity clung very close to their fires during that time, especially now, and they looked for the stars, which I'll explain later, that signaled the end of the ice storms, the end of winter. The use of a star on top of the tree symbolizes the winter star, whose presence indicated that winter, my little typo, had reached midway. The star that we think that they were seeing was actually Alpha Centauri's, perhaps Polaris. We're not too sure which star they were looking at. The stars move. I mean, the Big Dipper as it exists now will not exist in 3,000 years. Stars move all the time. Their alignment changes. It's our optical illusion that stars hold shape. They don't. They're actually very quickly moving interstellar bodies. So what's a constellation today may not be a constellation later. But to our best knowledge, due to the brightness of Alpha Centauri's, we probably think that that was it. And it's interesting, Alpha Centauri's actually corresponds to Yule. If you look up at the night sky, you'll see it. They may have also been experiencing Venus, later known as the goddess of love, and had mistaken it as a star. Although ancient astronomers were pretty on the ball, so that theory is not getting as much credence as if it was Polaris or Alpha Centauri's. And that is why the stars on top of the tree to guide us, because a lot of us can lose our path, especially in these times. It's easy to become angry, it's easy to become bitter, resentful. We don't want to experience that. We want our path to be clear. So the conclusion to this is Christmas has incorporated many aspects of Yule, but the holiday has never been forgotten. We still have Yule logs, Christmas trees, gift giving, wrapping paper. We even have Saint Nick, which is actually, it's believed is a descendant of the Holly King. Saint Nicholas was a man in Druidic culture that actually made little wooden toys for children and took them to children. It's believed that he made just thousands and thousands of toys, worked year-round to ensure that children had things in villages. So we don't know who he was. We have no archaeological record except some very obscure writings written in Greek, Arabic. Arabic sources do have a little bit about some sort of giving of self and giving of holdings, so on and so forth. I'm not too clear on it, but that seems to be a common denominator in a lot of different areas. Let's see. And it will be through our children that our culture is passed down. Our dream is to reconnect humanity to the earth and to save our race and the races of other co-inhabitants on earth from extinction. We work very hard for conservation efforts, forestry efforts, because at least in our culture, we say, as the animals go, so do we. And so we rely on them. We rely on the forests for air. We rely on each other, and right now humanity is not in a good place. And we need to reestablish these connections to the earth to restore balance before all is lost. And it won't be just a normal loss, it will be quite a catastrophic loss. And so this is the end of my presentation. I was going to introduce some basic facts about Wicca, just so everyone has kind of a backdrop. Wicca is an earth religion. It's been around about 25,000 years. Not always known as Wicca, it was a primal religion, introduced in cave paintings, introduced in rocks. We can see it with the Neanderthals. They were probably the original proponents of the religion, and the much more warlike humans probably stole it from them. That seems to be an archaeological record, what we're seeing right now. Wicca was originally established by the Senate in 1964. It was taken before there and declared an actual religion. We face a lot of struggles today in the Department of Family Services. It's well known that if you have an altar or any sort of pagan materials in your home, you can have your children taken away on those grounds alone, which is extremely sad. At MSP and other correctional institutes, we are not able to get the materials into the inmates that they need. They believe that Wicca presents a path of warlike behavior or aggressive behavior or cult-like activity, when that's not truly the case. The people who seem to need it the most are the people that are being denied it. People have been denied TANF funds and AFDC on basis of having a religious altar in their premises. I am one of the people that go to court and support these people. I'm an advocate. I go before the judge and ask, why can you discriminate against someone on a religious basis? Which has made me quite controversial in the justice system. But if I can change one life, I think that that's okay, because I don't think anyone's children, rights, or liberty should be taken away for what they believe in, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian, or whether you're pagan. I think that we're basically all on the same path, and we're all entitled to our religious beliefs. And if we can settle that war between us, then I think humanity will stand a chance. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome. Wow, that's loud. All right. We'll take a really quick break, and then if you want to hand in questions on index cards and stuff, there are refreshments and some cookies and stuff over there. And if you want to give index cards we'll have baskets going around, so just put them in there, and then the panelists will answer questions. All right. Okay. The first question is for Naomi, and it asks, what did the campus do when the, hope I pronounce it correctly, Sukkot was vandalized?
The sukkah?
Sukkah was vandalized.
Well, the structure is called a sukkah. The holiday was Sukkot. The university didn't do anything. I filed a police report on 2 separate occasions when it was clearly vandalized, and both times the officers were convinced that it was like intoxicated students running around on campus. So I filed police reports for all of the occasions, but the university hasn't done anything. So.
I'm not sure I understand this question, but I'll try and word it anyway. question is regarding diversity and an overreaching police power. So maybe if that makes if you understand that, maybe you could address each of you could briefly address issues with diversity and kind of, I'm presuming the United States is the country in question, and incorporating that, if that makes sense. Yeah, you know. We can start with Ravenna.
As a pagan, we experience difficulties with the police force, primarily when we're doing outdoor activities, which is the predominant arena for many of our religious activities. We've encountered hostile police all the way down to fire marshals that will not grant permits based solely on the fact that we're doing a religious ceremony. We have encountered some rather severe reactions from police, but yet sometimes some very understanding reactions from police. It's primarily with the justice system and the Department of Family Services, some of the faith-based nonprofit services for the poor or the unadvantaged people in the areas. Those seems to be the arenas that we have the most trouble in right now, especially since a lot of it, you experience extreme aggression towards any faith other than the mainstream society.
I'm not sure that I know enough about the justice system in terms of how it reacts towards anti-Semitism, but I do know that anti-Semitism is rampant across the country. There are, neo-Nazi groups that march, and people who deny the Holocaust, amongst other things. I'm not sure that the police really have an overbearing control because it's such a recognized religion in this country that there's really not a whole lot that they could do.
Actually, about one year ago, we had a meeting discussing some of the issues surrounding Muslim students on campus, and the police, university police, and some of the members of the Missoula Police Department came and attended that meeting. And in that meeting, we discussed some of the adab or mannerisms in dealing with Muslims. Particularly, some of the officers asked about Muslim women. How would they like to be, if there's any situation arises, would they like to be questioned by other female officers, or would a male officer be appropriate? And so the police have always had, I guess for us, a good dialogue with us from the beginning. I know one particular police officer on the university police department who I speak with on a regular basis. He's a Christian, and he comes into our office and we discuss anything from religious issues to politics to anything. So I'm fairly happy with the relationship that we have. As everybody knows, Islam is in the news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and none of it's good. So part of my job here is to kind of counteract that. That's a really huge job that no one person could do single-handedly, but there was a recent poll that went out, I think it was a Zogby poll, that asked Americans what was a particular thing that they liked about the religion of Islam, or one aspect, and 50% of them said, we don't like anything about that religion. The other 30% said, we don't know anything about that religion. And then the rest said they didn't know, and the ones who didn't know said, we like their devotion. So basically we have a really huge uphill battle that we fight on a daily basis with the media. So, a lot of the discrimination, those issues don't come into play until people recognize that you're Middle Eastern by descent. For myself, that I'm a Muslim, and then you get discrimination and issues. But so far, the University of Montana has shown a stellar example in responding to our needs, and we have a very good relationship with them. So at this point in time, we're very happy about that.
just say a quick piece. I think in a lot of Christian circles, in this country, we don't have to pay attention if we don't want to. I mean, we do have that choice in some ways, but the price is great. And I know in Missoula, in different circles in Lutheran churches, I mean, part of what we're trying to do is educate ourselves and open dialogues because of those very reasons. And so I think that's a huge part, is to be intentional about understanding and building relationships.
I'm going to fess up and own up to this question. I was watching the news tonight before I came here, and I was listening to a debate about a congressman who is Muslim and wants to be sworn in with the Quran instead of the Bible. And there was huge debate over the values that our country was based on, and that they're Bible-based values. And I was just wondering what each of your take would be on this debate, or if it is even really a debate. So.
I would have to say absolutely. I would allow him to have his book of faith. I think that everyone is entitled to your faith, because if you cannot take an oath by the faith that you believe in, such as for pagans when we do hand fasting vows, if we were forced to use a Christian creed, we wouldn't have the dedication and the depth when you present something that is intrinsically tied to your belief system, your God, your gods, or anything at a such deep emotional, ecstatic level as dealing with something purely of the spirit of the heart. I would say absolutely he should be given his faith-based book, as should any faith.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think anyone who wants to be sworn in on their book of faith should absolutely have that right. There's no, where's the rule that says it has to be a Bible?
Yeah, I think since I don't know if we'd be having this discussion in other instances. I mean, for example, if a Torah was presented, I don't know if we'd be having that debate. And maybe a Jehovah Witness Bible or something like that, which are more common in America. For the Muslim Student Association here, we have a Bible in our office. We believe that the Quran is a third of 3 revelations, being the Torah, the Gospel, and the Quran being the final revelation. So there shouldn't be a big conflict. I'd like to congratulate the congressman on winning and definitely representing Muslims here in the United States of America. I think it's a great achievement, and it really shows and reflects the values that this country was founded on, and that we're making progress. And the values that are instilled in the Quran, because it's the third of, we believe, the third of the 3 revelations, that means that they should be the same values that are based in the Bible and the Torah. So consequently, the one who swears on the Quran should be swearing on all 3 of those. And that's all.
I think it's really interesting just to watch culturally how we deal with diversity, and I think up until more recently, we've built on more of sense of tolerance, but in a case like this, tolerance is different. We're pushed beyond that to accept, to honor, and it's very difficult to say that we really accept or we really honor if we're not able to make that switch. And this is getting played out in lots of different ways, and it's difficult for us.
Here's a question that's kind of the crux of the meeting tonight, so hopefully everybody can comment on it. This person says, before I came here, my roommate asked, why go to this event if you already have one celebration holiday that you're familiar with? What would you all say to that, and how do you all deal with the other traditions, holidays that go on around this time?
That's a very interesting question. For me, a lot of it, we use a Yule tree instead of a Christmas tree, which unless you are familiar with pagan tradition, you can't tell the difference. The Yule log is present in a lot of different Christmas factors. I would say come to a meeting to expand your mind, because throughout humanity there's been so many changes in the way that humanity pictures what is mainstream. What is mainstream today, you know, maybe obscurity tomorrow. I would say expand your mind, and you know, there's a phrase that says, you know, minds are like parachutes, they only function when they're open. I think that lends a lot of credence, especially to cultural diversity, because if we were all the same, what would be the point of being the human race at all?
You know, the point of any of these meetings or any other, or any meeting where other religions are in question is only an opportunity for someone to learn. And that's why we're here in college. That's why we're on a campus, and we're here to learn. And meetings like this open up the possibility for expanding anyone's mind. During this month, during any of these holidays, you know, yes, okay, so you have one celebration that you're familiar with, but there's a whole big world out there with other celebrations in it. So.
I'd just like to say that, you know, the Christian tradition, Christmas, the birth of Christ, the Advent, the pastor mentioned earlier, it's so important to the Christian faith. And Muslims aren't living under the guise that we don't live in a Christian country. That these values, Christian values, that the Bible, that these aren't really strongly ingrained parts, a part of the culture, and they're not going away anytime in the real near future. Maybe people's religiosity has grown significantly because of some of the events that happen, and maybe their participation in religious activities has gone down a little bit. But I think that, you know, as Muslims here, we have a lot of esteem and a lot of respect for the Christian community, and that they have their holidays. For example, the birth of Christ is a very important event that's mentioned in the Holy Quran, and we hold it as a very holy event. Maybe the day that the December 25th isn't the actual day that he was born, alayhi salam, but we believe that it's a very special day. And so I think that when you come into a country, you know, myself, I was born here, so, and my family's Catholic, and we celebrate all kinds of things. And usually the most neutral thing is Thanksgiving, so we all get together for that. But, you know, Christmas is as the pastor mentioned earlier, it's kind of a gathering. It's not more religious than any other holiday. So there's really, there's a lot of respect between my family and individually for each holiday. And I can get a card from my sister for Eid, and I can send something to her in the holiday season. And I think that those things have only served to build our relationship and make it stronger, and our family's gotten stronger as a whole because of that. And it's a really good example of the way that the nation can go forward with all these different people that they've allowed inside their borders. We're not a homogenous culture. You know, we've opened up the borders and immigration for all these people. So now that we've done that, we have to make some accommodation for those people. We didn't tell people when they come here that you have to leave everything that you are and put on an American hat and do that and live that kind of lifestyle. So
I think events like these help all of us to look at our own celebrations, our own beliefs, and also to help us to understand each other. I think it just helps us to grow deeper as people of faith, whatever that faith is.
Do you agree that all religions are exclusionary and intolerant sometimes, is the first question. And is there a place for each of those approaches?
It is my belief, at least as an anthropologist and an archaeologist, that humans are xenophobic, meaning that we fear that which we do not know. I believe that for me as a pastor, when I go in front of a Montana State Prison Board and I know all of those gentlemen are WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, that they have already judged me before I even speak. So I can sense their intolerance. As such, I try my best, but some days I wonder if I don't gain an intolerance myself from feeling that intolerance and from sensing their animosity towards my way of thinking. It is a constant battle to remain open-minded, but at the same time, I looked at it as if they came to a coven meeting. How would I treat them? You know, I keep that as a example, but I think the xenophobia happens to be a trait that has been passed down in humanity for generations. Unfortunately, I think that we separate, we isolate, and we categorize, sometimes without knowing why we do it. As such, I think that it is our conscious efforts that should allow us to learn hospitality with each other and to learn how to accept differences.
I think that Judaism as a religion is very tolerant and open-minded. That doesn't mean that people who practice Judaism are always open-minded and tolerant. There are families in Israel who could be, sway one way, and that's the way it should be. And, being here in America, I see both sides of the story. Well, I try and see both sides of the story. The media doesn't always get the story right. So there are many holidays in Judaism where, as a tradition, families will leave a door open in the household, and it's to encourage people who aren't inside the home, be it, if they're poor or homeless or not, and they just happen to be passing by, that it's an open door policy. So as a religion, I think tolerance is a very big deal. It's definitely taught in schools. I learned it when I was in high school, and I learned it from my parents, who believe that that's a big value that one needs to have.
So the question was about exclusion, I believe.
And is there a place for all the different religious groups?
There's a verse in the Quran where God says, "We created you in nations and tribes so that you will get to know each other, and that's so you wouldn't despise one another." Not so that you would despise one another. Kind of echoes the sentiment that if we were all Chinese, for example, maybe the world wouldn't look so interesting, so diverse. People are beautiful in all their shapes and forms and cultures, and I think that's shows, it reflects the glory of God that He created us in our faith. Do I believe that religions are exclusionary? Yes, because that's what makes their respective members Muslims or Jewish or Christians or pagans, Buddhists. That's what makes them who they are, because that is their faith. And I'd like to just narrate a quick story here. As you saw in the film, when you go to Mecca, there's two roads, one for Muslims going into Mecca and one for non-Muslims going around Mecca. If you go to the Vatican, you might find the same thing. There's definitely holy sites and holy places for our various faiths on the earth. And the story that I have to relate is one of an American soldier who was flying over Iraq in a helicopter, and his helicopter was shot down. He was actually from Montana, and when his helicopter was shot down, I think by an RPG or some kind of rocket-propelled grenade or missile, he landed on the ground, and he had basically lost the use of both of his legs. And a farmer came, an Iraqi farmer, older guy, came and picked him up. And he said, "Don't kill me, don't kill me." And he said, "When you were up there, I had a right to kill you because you were trying to kill us. But now that you're here, you have a right over me." So when Naomi talked about having an open door, I think that's one thing you'll always find from a Muslim, is that his door is always open for generosity, and always open to someone on a human level. As soon as you come on that level, if you're attacking someone, then you have a right to be attacked. If you come to someone as a human being needing help in this situation, you get that response. And you'll get it more so from us, I believe, than many. And this person actually eventually went on and accepted Islam and became a Muslim. And his sister was telling the story to a friend of mine, his daughter, and she said, "I don't know what happened to him, but he's happy all the time. He used to go to the bar, and he used to do all these things. Now he can't use his legs, but his mood and everything is happiness." And she said, "Well, I guess we need to really think about the definition of happiness and what that means." So I guess to answer the question in a short sentence is that, yes, religions are exclusionary because they do invite people to their way and their thinking, but I think that they can also be very inclusive to other people, and that's why events like this are so important.
I think one of the concerns that that we wrestle with as Christians is that there are places in our Scripture in the New Testament, for instance, the Gospel of John, where Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the light. No one comes to the Father but through me." And there are, there's not a lot, but there are a few texts that will go in that direction, and I think that. Unfortunately, I think it's led a lot of Christianity to understand that as saying that the only way to God is through Christ, that only through Christianity, and in that sense, excluding other faiths from having a connection with God or a connection or being saved in the afterlife, or however you want to talk about that. And I don't personally think that is an accurate way of understanding those texts or interpreting the Christian faith, and I think we need to back away from that exclusion. And for me, I say that journey is my path, but I am not going to say it's the only path, and that we need to have room and to be able to honor other paths. And that's tough, and that is not always a welcome voice within Christianity, but in our diverse culture, we need to really pay attention to that. I think that's really the heart of what Jesus, who he was and what he was about, when I go back and look at the Gospels. And I think that needs to be reclaimed as part of our faith.
All right, we'll do one more quick question. Sorry we couldn't get to everybody's questions. The question is, what's one thing or event you would all suggest the university do to promote tolerance and understanding of all religions?
One suggestion that I would like to make is perhaps to offer actually to mandate one day out of the university's calendar to explore a different religious aspect each month, and at least to say these are the holidays that will be promoted this month. And in Fairfax, I would like to see that on, say, Yom Kippur, that it is featured, or Yule it is featured, or Eid it is featured, so that people are aware of these and professors can make exceptions and move scheduling to accommodate these practices, because we're at home with our families and with the people that we need to be with. It makes us suffer as a people and makes our culture suffer when we cannot make these reasonable accommodations in the university system.
I definitely agree with the bare facts. If the university is going to, like I said, recognize one religion, all of them should be. My suggestion would be, I believe that having classes on campus that are of other religions would be crucial to this university. Students who would be able to take a religion-based course, very basic and intro, as an elective could be rewarding. And I know personally from other campuses that when a religion is based or is offered as a course, oftentimes students then go study abroad in a country that it may predominantly be of that religion or of that culture. So I think we need to be a little bit more diverse in the courses that we offer for religions and other countries' cultures.
I'd like to echo the same sentiments. I think that offering, at least in the Fairfax calendar, making sure that the dates are set aside so that professors and faculty and staff are aware that these are holidays. For Muslims, that could mean that on campus 150 students are not in class, could be taking a day or two off. They don't necessarily fall on the weekends. And I think since we recognize Thanksgiving, which is basically a neutral holiday, and we recognize Christmas and we have these times off, I think we're not, as members of a diverse faith group, we're not asking for time off from our classes, but we're asking, or to ask for the university to actually recognize this as a holiday and give it off to all students, but to be aware that there are students of different faiths on campus and respect that they might want to take these times off and be able to accommodate the students. And that's what we're really asking for. The university has done a good job so far, and they have a great opportunity here to move even farther in the right direction.
I really like the world religion class idea, or even more, intro to Muslim or intro to paganism, or some of those classes I think could be really interesting.
Thank you all very much. That was awesome. If you can please fill out the evaluation forms, we would greatly appreciate it. And feel free to help yourself to more refreshments and ask questions of people who are hanging around. So thanks again for coming. Thanks.
Thank you very much.